And it hits me, oh my gosh, this is that triangle.
You know, there's explanation for everything that occurred in the Rendlesham Forest incident that doesn't involve aliens at all.
It was completely silent. It comes right over our heads.
He saw a classic flying saucer really standing in the clearing.
He turned over to my father and held his hand, and he looked in his eyes and he said, "We're not alone."
Welcome to Podcast UFO for our live show. We're live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Please remember to visit the website podcastufo.com for past episodes, blogs, and forums. During the show, feel free to participate live in our chat room. And don't forget to like us on our very active Facebook page.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Martin Willish, your host. I'm in a good mood tonight. I'm not really sure why, because it's cold outside, and but it's nice and warm here inside. And we have another great show coming up for you this evening. We have a couple of guests. Our guest coming up in the first hour is Christina Nolles, and she'll be talking about her website, Foundation for Research in Extraterrestrial Encounters, and much more. And in the second hour, we have Angel Espino coming up. I heard him talk on UFOs on another show and thought he was pretty good, so I've invited him on my show, and he'll be on in the second hour. Before that, we have Alejandro Rojas coming up from openminds.tv. He's going to talk about the latest UFO events. And just one thing I want to announce here, if you've been emailing me, I haven't been getting your email for a while. It's been pretty quiet, and I've actually kind of relaxed a little bit. It's been going well. Then I realized today people haven't been responding to my email. It was going out but not coming back in, and that's because I have a new dedicated server, and it just wasn't set up properly. So that's what's going on with that. So if I haven't answered your email, I am not ignoring you. I will be back as soon as it gets straightened out, and that's martin@podcastufo.com. So if you want to subscribe to hear the second hour of our shows as a podcast, go to getjoyride.com/podcastufo. The link is right on our website. And subscribers pay only $1 or more a month to access the full show. And also you have a private link. There's a way to listen on iTunes. There's a way to listen on your iPhone. There is a Android app. And, of course, there's Stitcher. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that yet. But if you have any problems or questions, you can always reach me at, again, martin@podcastufo.com when that email is working. And we are ready to draw the prize for the $10 per month supporter for a free shipped to you Podcast UFO t-shirt. Doesn't matter where you live. I know it costs some money to ship overseas, but if you're the winner, you'll get this. And we are waiting right now for our lovely assistant. Hang on just one moment. Yes. Would you mind coming over here and picking from this basket? Just pick a name from the basket, if you would. And
well, hi, Martin.
Hi, who do we have here?
We have Ed Sanborn.
Ed Sanborn, one. Yes, Ed Sanborn. So I'll be reaching out to you. Get your mailing address. Thank you very much. And we'll be sending that right out. So it's time now to bring on Alejandro. What is happening, Alejandro?
Oh, my gosh, there's so much happening. And you know, I think we talked about this last week, the Blue Book thing, right?
Yeah.
And John Greenwood posting the files. So that has exploded. So the Daily Mail picked up my story, and then other UK news picked up their story. Daily Mail luckily linked back to me and gave me credit, but the others didn't. This has exploded. So then ABC News calls him. He's on ABC News Tonight.
He's saw on that.
The Today Show. Yeah. Yeah, so I think we talked about some of the controversy around this, how some people were accusing him of stealing them, but it was this anonymous guy who provided them to many of us. Of course, these are Air Force files. They're all free to the public, you know. So he was able to get those posted, which is really cool. But the news is misreporting everything. The Today Show says something like John Greenwald did all of these FOIAs, which he has, and he's gotten millions of pages of documents from FOIAs he's been doing since he's a teenager that he has at the Black Vault. But, of course, the U.S. Air Force Blue Book files have been out for a long, long time. He isn't responsible of that, nor is he claiming to be responsible for that. But all of these news sites are crediting him with it. Even the Today Show, of course, is out there saying John Greenwald got these files released when that wasn't the case. And it's funny because I keep in contact with him, and he's like, I clarified. I went over and over this with them because they kept saying, well, when you got these files out from the Air Force? And he said, no, I didn't get them out from the Air Force. They were already out. So even though he tried to clarify, they just said whatever the hell they wanted to anyway. And as we know, because we monitor the stories from the media, they just don't care about getting the facts right when it comes to UFO stories. They just make stuff up, and it's so weird.
Did you happen to read Kevin Randall's blog on that?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, he wrote a blog, just trying to clear up some of the misquotes and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's interesting because I follow his blog and read it quite often, but I hadn't seen that one. But, yeah, there's a lot of mistakes and stuff like that. But the point is, what's good about this is, a lot of people are looking at the files. A lot of people in the UFO field didn't even know. You could go out there, it took some research, but you could find them. And so now they're more prevalent. Everybody's getting to know that these files are here, and they are reporting how there were 700, the Air Force alleges 700 unidentified cases. So people are hopefully looking for those and finding out more about that so they can read some of these amazing unidentified cases that are in the Blue Book files.
Yeah. What was the documentary that James Fox is working on? Isn't it 701 or something like that?
Yeah. James Fox with Tracy Torme and a couple others are working on, some producers from Hangar One are working on this documentary. They're trying to get funds for it, so I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but that's the premise, is the 701 unidentified cases. Of course, the Air Force said there were 701, and their website says this, 701 unidentified among nearly 13,000 cases. But when you go look at the actual records, there aren't 701. In some cases, you see different numbers everywhere. So, and nowhere except for their claim do you see 701 unidentifieds. Some people estimate it at more like 650. Some say 500. Some people say 1,600. But if you go through the files, at least, and there are some guides out there that you could Google and find to find what some of the unidentified words. And then there's also J. Allen Hynek had his own accounting. So he felt there were more unidentifieds than the Air Force had said, but he also felt some that the Air Force said were unidentified were identified. So it's kind of confusing, but that's the official word, 701.
I have to admit that I am one of those people that didn't know those files were accessible. And it's just only because I didn't really look into it. And I think what is going to happen is a lot of people out there now will start looking into these files because they perhaps have the same, thoughts that I did, possibly, that they didn't know that they were readily handy. So maybe, some more cases will get stirred up and a little more investigation, and who knows? I know it was a long time ago, but perhaps some witnesses will, get contacted or come forward or whatever. It's only maybe I'm just dreaming here, but it could happen.
Yeah, it could. I think it's positive. I think it just demonstrates that there were good cases out there that even though people feel the Air Force kind of blew the whole thing off, that they took it very, very seriously. And because of these unidentified cases, many in the Air Force were not convinced that it is something not to pay attention to. Many felt that it was a very important subject.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Has anything been happening?
Yeah, there has. This is a really fun story. I think this is a cool one. And this is one of those where it's a slow news day, and I'm hunting and hunting for stories. And I found a really interesting one in the French newspapers. Also, I found out other European newspapers are writing about this. But there have been UFOs since October flying over nuclear power plants in France and Belgium. And they don't know what they are. In fact, the French government says they're on high alert due to these UFO sightings. Now, the media and authorities believe that they're probably drones, quadcopters or something like that. However, sometimes they're seen in pairs, and some of the witnesses don't agree with that theory. The other thing is they don't know whose they are. They're saying, okay, well, we think they're drones, but we don't know whose. They're suspecting that it could be a anti-nuclear organizations that's doing this to show that, nukes are scary and they can't protect them properly. But a lot of organizations have been working with the authorities and come forward and said, no, it's not us. So that hasn't panned out. But a lot of people are up in arms. Greenpeace is saying, look, you're downplaying the danger. This shows that, anyone with a drone could fly, a bomb into a nuclear power plant. So this is really crazy. There were something like 18 of them between flyovers in October and November, but they have been happening since. The last time this happened was January 3rd in France, where some security guards said they saw 2 flying objects. There were some teenagers arrested in October who were called airplane enthusiasts, model aircraft enthusiasts is what the news said. And they were going to attempt to fly something, so it was before they did it, over the nuclear power plants. But the authorities have said these aren't the people who have been doing this. They were just copycatting because they're just using a simple toy with limited range, whereas whatever has been flying over these things must have, must be military grade, highly sophisticated, because they can't track them and they don't know where they're coming from. How crazy is that?
Now, I'm wondering here if it's actually eyewitness accounts totally, or is there any radar involved in any of this?
Well, supposedly, from what I've read, it's eyewitness accounts. Some of those witnesses have posted on some websites. In particular, there's a guy named Andres Mueller who has a website called gre.wi, and he has been reporting on this with some of the witness testimony. And what they report is weird, like tubes of light and some strange stuff. However, supposedly there is some footage and pictures that the nuclear power plants have obtained, but that they have not shared with the public as of yet. I did read that they did share some with the public, but I have not seen those pictures or videos yet. I haven't been able to find them. So, and throughout this, you can see there were a lot of people in the media telling them, you need to release these pictures, show us these pictures and videos. So they do have that. But like I said, these are security guards, people at these plants that work for the plants that are seeing these things and reporting them to the authorities. Wow, amazing. Interesting. Yeah. And I wonder if Robert Hastings is, alerted to this or looking into any part of it. Yeah, we've been so busy with our conference that I haven't asked him about that. But now you remind me, I did want to send this story to him and see if he has been following. And I'm assuming he does. I know he looks at our website, but I haven't heard from him. But you're right. We should check with him because, of course, he follows UFO sightings at nuclear power plants, and he has a ton of incredible witnesses. And I think we talked about this. He's trying to make a documentary and would love financial support from the public. So right. I encourage that too. Yeah. Okay. So do we have one more story? Sure. This is kind of an interesting one from the last few days. This is from New Mexico. There was a guy driving on the I-10 westbound near New Mexico, and he says he saw an extremely large, completely dark object hovering. He said he watched this thing for like an hour as he was driving. He did then pull over because he had to go to the restroom or something like that, or get gas. He took a picture of the object, and he reported this to MUFON, and we've got it on our site. This was written by Roger Marsh, who writes for us and works for MUFON and posts their sightings. But when he got done getting gas, he looked for the object, and it was gone. So even though he had been watching this for an hour, and it apparently to him was completely still for that entire hour. So kind of you can't make very much out from the picture at all. You can see there's something there. He took the picture with his phone, but unfortunately the resolution isn't enough. You zoom in and it's just kind of a blur. So it's hard to make anything out from the photograph, but kind of a strange, kind of a cool sighting there.
Right. And you can see this if you follow the show notes right on podcastufo.com. It'll link right to the original story on openminds.tv. Thank you, Alejandro. And we'll be talking. I know you're going to be busy next week, and you're going to get busier and busier as we go along, but hopefully we'll be talking to you next week.
Yeah, definitely. Always a pleasure, my friend.
You betcha. All right. I'll talk to you then.
Adios.
All right, so if you hang in there, right after the quick music break, we'll be right back with Christina Nolles. That music was provided by our listener, Bruce Rainier, and thank you, Bruce. Christina, I hope you're on the line. How are you?
I am very, very good, Martin. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for joining us. And I had the pleasure of meeting you a few years ago and really enjoyed your company and thought you were fairly bright. You're very bright. And I want to talk to you about your recent involvement. Is this a new venture for you, or fairly new? I know that you've been working hard with experiencers over the several years, but this particular website, the Foundation for Research into, let's go ahead and talk about that, and you can talk about your background a little bit too.
Fantastic. I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's great to be on the air with you again. I know in the past I was working with the Experiencers Project, so that led, the television project in conjunction with Jim O'Connell, so that led to a wonderful opportunity to get more involved in this and to find out that this was really my niche, that I wanted to work with experiencers. And I just have to compliment you too, Martin. You have been fantastic. I've been following your work over the last couple of years and absolutely love all the speakers that you bring on and just all the breakthroughs that we seem to continually enjoy in this field. So it's an honor to be with you again. Well, thank you. And yes, the show I do has only to do with the guests, and it's not always easy getting guests, but there's interesting ones sometimes. There's I get a lot of email about different people, but it's real enjoyable to speak to so many different people with different ideas and thoughts, because no one really has an answer. It's just it's more interesting just looking for it, and perhaps someday that will change. But let's talk about the Foundation for Research into ET Encounters. Great. I appreciate that. So first off, I want to make sure that I give our website out just so that everyone knows how to actually find where we're located on the web. It's Experiencer, so that's EXPERIENCER.co. So instead of .com, it's just .co. And then, of course, we can be reached at our email address, which is free@experiencer.co. And I should say that when I was leaving the other project, when you and I met, the TV series, acting as co-producer and whatnot, and lead investigator for that, one thing that happened and occurred to me is that really, really good quality research is necessary in the field. And I didn't feel that we completely had that to date. So what had happened is I was working with a wonderful gentleman. It was actually a case that I had been investigating by the name of Ray Hernandez out of Miami, Florida. And he called one day with a brilliant download, and any experiencer that's had the download kind of thing occur would definitely relate to that. So I said, oh my gosh, Ray, pull over. I don't want you to get hit, because I knew he was on the freeway and he had this download, and he just was very excited and animated and went into this concept that we should be collaborating and doing research. So I just thought it was phenomenal. And from there, it expanded to Mary Rodwell out of Brisbane, Australia, who's phenomenal. I had been meeting with her over Skype and had been following her work for many years. And so the idea had come up that we would create a new non-for-profit research organization. And so we refer to ourselves as FREE, which stands for the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. So out of this idea, once we started to attract to ourselves, which is very rapidly and mysteriously just all fell right into place, but different PhD physicists, PhD psychologists, various scientists, medical professionals, and a diversity of experiencers that would all work under one umbrella as an open-air university, if you will. And that by bringing these diverse voices together, that we could discuss specifically what was going on with the experiencers, or some call us contactees or abductees. I certainly identify and have all the qualifying markers. So this is, you could say I have a very vested interest in this specific area of ufology. So going into that, what we did is we created a board of directors. And I should say that the phenomenal part, if you look at our website, there's a lot of information there, but we have not done this alone. We have the honor of working with some amazing people. So I just kind of want to go into that a bit. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man on the moon, and also the founder of the Institute of Noetic Sciences, played a very key role in meeting with Ray Hernandez and inspiring us to develop FREE. And then we have Dr. Rudy Shields, the emeritus professor of astrophysics at the Harvard University and currently working with the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. So they're actually both two of our founding board members for the advisory board. And it's been phenomenal to work with them. And what I love about this is it's not just about a bunch of bios, but people are actually coming together and have been for some time now. We launched this, I would say, probably in March of 2013, and it grew very rapidly. And then we officially launched the site in September of last year. So wonderful stuff.
Great. And just for anyone that's listening live, you can jump in the chat room and send Christina a question if you'd like, or a comment, and that's very easy. Just jump on podcastufo.com, and right to the right-hand side, you'll see the chat room. It's a 2-click sign-in. So, Christina, have you actually been working with Dr. Mitchell?
Yes, so we have a very interesting relationship within FREE. We like to appreciate the gentleman's time and make sure everyone at a certain level has certainly their day job and other things that they have to accommodate within what they're doing. So when we have specific projects that we need feedback on, typically that will go through Ray, who has met, Ray Hernandez, who has met with Dr. Mitchell a number of times at his home. And then, of course, Dr. Rudy Shields knows Edgar, so a lot of times we'll get information back that way. And he's been phenomenal. Now, Dr. Shields is much more accessible, which has been lovely. And a lot of the quantum, you'll see a lot of the different questions and things on the website, a lot of the write-ups, that's the information that we can refer to. Now, I think I've done a little disservice here. I want to go backwards in time and just kind of talk a little bit about Ray Hernandez, because this gentleman is phenomenal. Read it quickly just so that the listening audience knows, but he's an experiencer who is currently employed as an estate tax attorney with the IRS, U.S. Department of Treasury. He's also obviously co-founder, co-director of FREE. He was previously the director of Center for Sustainable Urban Environment at the City University of New York and the director of the Office of Community Environmental Planning for the City of New York. He's attended Rutgers College, Cornell University, and was a PhD candidate at UC Berkeley in city and regional planning. He was also the recipient of the National Science Foundation PhD Fellowship, and he resides, as I said, in Florida. And then again, I just want to give credit to anyone who might not know who Mary Rodwell is. She's certainly really well known within my circles, but some might know. So she's a counselor and hypnotherapist, ufologist, researcher, metaphysician, and former registered nurse and midwife in the UK. She's founder and principal of ACERN, which is Australian Close Encounter Resource Network, and she is recognized internationally as one of the leading researchers in the UFO and contact phenomenon. She's lectured in all over the world, US, Canada, Hawaii, UK, New Zealand, and appears regularly in national and international media and news programs. So she's phenomenal. And anyone that hasn't read the book, I would highly suggest getting it, Awakening, How Extraterrestrial Contact Can Transform Your Life. And she resides in Queensland, Australia, but fantastic. So we put this idea together. We decided that we really wanted to develop a team, and for 3 specific reasons. So our main objective is research, educate, and support. Excuse me. So our research project, what we're doing with that, we have Dr. John Climo. He's the chair of our Experiencer Research Project. He is a professor of psychology with over 40 years experience as an academic researcher and teaching professor who has chaired over 250 PhD dissertations in psychology. 75 of those have been in the field of the paranormal. Fantastic near-death experience. I mean, this man, I could talk to him forever. He's phenomenal. And then we have Dr. Leo Sprinkle. He's the co-chair. He's retired professor of psychology who has undertaken research in the field since 1962.
Right.
And very well
His name comes up a lot. Yes.
Right. Yep. And Kathleen Martin. She's MUFON's director of abduction research, and she's the author of several major ufology books, including the one Alien Abduction Files with Denise Stoner. And Denise Stoner, I'll go into her bio in a quick second. But she has been phenomenal to work with as well. And then we have Barbara Lamb. She was the therapist that I was able to work with years ago when I was having my awakening after my experiences in March of 1999. So that helped tremendously. She is the author of Alien Experiences and Crop Circles Revealed, and she has conducted research on over 3,500 experiencer cases now throughout the world. And again, Denise Stoner, a lifelong experiencer. She has worked in the field for the last 20 years and is co-author with Kathleen Martin on the Alien Abduction Files again. And then we have Ralph Steiner. He is a researcher in the paranormal field for 25 years now and a non-academic physicist with expertise on the quantum hologram theory of physics and consciousness. So again, it's an honor to be able to work with these folks. I feel like the idiot of the bunch sometimes, to tell you the truth, especially when we start getting into all the different quantum discussions. It's awesome. And I should say that I want to, well, I just stop quickly with Ralph and say I want to congratulate Ralph because he is going to be starting this lovely radio show on KGRA radio. And it's going to be entitled The Other Side of the Universe. And the focus is going to be science explores all aspects of ET contact and the paranormal. And again, it's going to be on KGRA digital broadcasting station, and it should start sometime early March of this year. So very good stuff.
That's great. right now, I just had this conversation with someone down in Portsmouth, New Hampshire the other day. We were out at lunch and we were just chatting, and I'm just going to ask you what you would say to this claim that he had. He said, well, he was talking about alien abductions, and he says you go back in time. He said there were the elves, there were the the demons, there was all these different things. He says today is just it's the fashion is aliens instead, and alien abduction, and that's all it is. Leprechauns. He went on and naming all the different mythical encounters that happened in the past, and so I just wanted to hear what your take was on how would you respond to someone that would say that to you.
Oh, I think it's a fantastic theory, and we should actually test that, with the data that we're receiving. So, in other words, if in fact whatever has been visiting mankind has the ability to manipulate the mind, then wouldn't it stand to reason that one would perceive the experience as an elf or an angel or a demon or God only knows what? So this is another aspect of research, and I think this is the exciting part of research, is first admitting we don't know what the hell we're doing, and then secondly, really digging into it and looking at the data. And, I mean, let's face it, today in this age, we're not hearing a bunch of fairy reports, are we? No, we're hearing ET. However, we do have more scientific practices now to be able to ascertain that something is clearly non-human, the vessel, let's say, So when we go into these types of flying vessels, which we are being, in our modern day able to record, and obviously firsthand testimony such as mine and others around the globe, what are we really going to look at when we pop let's say we look inside that craft? So I think it's a great question. Something that, again, hopefully the research will give us a clearer picture, but I highly doubt that we will be in other words, in my lifetime, we might be just a tad closer. So this is, to me, an endeavor that it's a rabbit hole you will never quite get to the bottom of. And that's exciting. I will never tire of it.
I agree. Well, let's just say that you were getting an encounter from an alien, and these millions of people, or hundreds of thousands, how many are claiming, globally that this is happening to them? If these beings were clever enough to actually go interstellar, then they could probably control about anything that they want. If everything is true, what you hear, or even part of it is true of what you hear, but it makes you wonder, too, like, it just seems like there would be more witnesses or something like that. Someone would actually, you hear of a couple of cases, and you hear of a couple of interesting cases about people being awake and not being able to move and all that and seeing things happen. But it just seems like there would be some type of slip-up eventually where there was...
That's right.
Yeah, what's your opinion on that?
That's right. Well, here's my opinion. I do this work all day long, and if I wanted to, I could take a new case or more. Sometimes there was a mode, I'd say several years ago, where I was crazy enough to take 3 new cases on a day, which is insanity, because if you're really trying to work a case. So what I can tell you is, from my perspective and where I'm sitting, we are overwhelmed with cases, and people do not really know what's going on. And when you've talked to one, and again, this is why, one of my goals is actually to document the research. I'm going to be speaking at the Experiencers Speak conference, hopefully in August, and that will give me an opportunity to have some of that research there. I want to go back to what you said a second ago. Well over, you said something to the effect of 100,000 cases. Here's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with many, many more than that, okay? And this is only what we know. So in research so far, what we found is that they do ET, and I do believe they're extraterrestrial. I'm not here to talk about fairies and mermaids. I'm here to talk about extraterrestrials and intelligent, and we can call them whatever we want. I don't care. We can talk about, what do they look like? We could spend all day, okay, the different species and all that. But when you are in an abduction scenario or contact scenario, as it were, and you find yourself connecting with these beings, they are extremely telepathic. So number one, as a researcher, that's one of my clues, because again, I did not believe in UFOs prior to March of 1999 when I had my adult sighting. I did not believe in the existence of extraterrestrial life. I had been deprogrammed by society, by the media, by religion, not to believe that this even was ever going to pop up on my radar. Okay? So when it did, and I actually went through that process of having direct recall, okay, there's a lot of, with research, regression, blah, blah, blah. Fine. Don't look at regression work. Let's just look at the hard research and what someone actually consciously recalls, okay? There's a lot of evidence, and then, of course, researching many cases now. And again, when you do this research, experiencers don't go away, which is a beautiful thing. They continue to call and check in. Mm-hmm. And that's the most important part that we can do, is actually connect with one another. Connect. Talk, open up, okay? Now, why don't people want to go so public with this? Because they have families, because there's still this ridiculous societal stigma that if you even talk about UFOs, you're crazy, much less having some type of, communication with these beings. So there's a lot of that. And again, that's why I feel so passionately about free, is because we really are not doing ourselves any kind of service by just pretending that this is not real. I think, if they're flying in the sky, then yeah, maybe we should pay attention to the evidence that they're leaving behind. And everyone's just, show me the evidence. I can. It's called hundreds of thousands of human beings all over the globe that are having these contact experiences. And guess what? They're not stopping. They call me all the time. I had another one. Okay, cool. Let me get a cup of tea, sit down. All right, let's go. What's going on here? Okay, So again, it's more than I can handle or anyone else. So that's why we've developed these kinds of instruments to be able to really study this and to really, 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 matter of fact, let me talk about that for a second. So the research instruments, the first survey or questionnaire alone that anyone can take, and by the way, if you're an experiencer and you would like to fill out the information in an anonymous with an anonymous name, that's fine. We do have certain technical mechanisms, which I'm not going to go into detail, but we can track certain things just to make sure that we're not getting inundated with garbage data. And that is just for the phase 1 questionnaire. So that's 100 questions roughly. When we get into phase 2, we are well over 1,000 questions, okay? Wow. And I'm not going to go into why. I'm going to say again, this has been taken, the methodology, quantitative, qualitative, and everything else that we've been putting together for quite some time now is there for a reason, and I didn't design it. I'm just blown away at the individuals and what they've come up with at the academic level. Then the phase 3 interviews would be one-on-one. So that group will be smaller. So we'll be able to look for different indicators within. Okay, now some of the indicators, and I don't know how much you talk about abduction. A lot of people talk about UFOs. So some of the indicators, for me, researcher that's already been there, done that, I would look for the paralysis, because I certainly can relate to that. I would look, by the way, you are awake. You're absolutely awake. And so this is much different than this garbage where they say, oh, it's sleep paralysis or anything like that. You're actually able to see a being for a certain amount of time. And again, we can talk about verbiage. We should write new dictionaries for everything that's being discovered in the research. But let's just say that the individual is switched off at a certain point. Why? Well, because of the stress, because it's very, very stressful. And no matter, even if you're a lifelong contactee, and this is something I'm monitoring in a lot of the cases that I'm working with, some do very well in their environment, which means in their home. And this is also a shift in what I'm seeing in a lot of cases, is that people would say, oh, I'm abducted and I'm in, and I believe me, I've been in both environments. I can say, yes, I definitely can relate to what it was like to be in a more extraterrestrial environment on a craft, let's say, and what it is to have contact when I'm in the comfort of my own home. So I've kind of covered a lot of that. And again, we're only talking about my little, neck of the woods and Christina's research. We're not even talking about what Free has done. Very excited. And again, we don't have a tremendous amount of cases like some of the organizations others do. We're taking things very slowly and at a very clinical level, because we do want to make sure that the data is good. We do want to vet it out, and then we want to dig deeper into that data and follow the cases throughout. So we're not in a rush. It's not about making a name for ourselves or anything like that. It's actually about really understanding and uncovering something that is happening globally now. So I know I've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at the chat room right this second.
No, that's good. We do have one
Yeah.
question up there.
Please.
And someone wanted to know if the experience with the contact you had, was that positive or negative?
Oh, I think that's an excellent question. That's actually part of some of the pie charts, and what's awesome to me about a lot of the research that the feedback we're getting from the experiencers is that we are somewhere around neutral. So in other words, they're saying, just like me, positive, negative, and neutral. Why is that? Because it depends on where you are with your psychology, your psyche. So in other words, in the beginning, terrified. Are you kidding me? Absolutely terrified. Absolutely terrified. March of 1999. In fact, I talked to a friend of mine who knew me around that time and said, Christina, don't you remember? You'd come over after work, you'd shower, and you'd curl up in a ball and fall asleep. You did not want to go back to your apartment. And he said you could not stop talking about the UFO that you saw on your hunting trip, nor the red light that floated into your room, a couple nights later. I couldn't remember. That kind of stuff gives me chills and I think that's why it gives me so much compassion to do the work that I do too. The most important part of this is for me today, is talking to other experiencers, because this doesn't only affect them. This affects their families. This affects their children, their careers, everything. Okay. So yes, absolutely negative in some respects. Now, over time, and perhaps because I've decided not to run away from it, but to really integrate these experiences and try to come to a deeper understanding of why that they're in my life and what possibly could ET want with me. What is this about? Am I inviting it? Lots of deep questions. Then we get into the positive aspect. And I don't believe that is just some altered state that they are projecting. I've heard so many different theories, and I really don't believe that. You hear just everything. But that's fine. Everyone is entitled to their belief. And I do believe that there are positive ETs. As it is in heaven, so it is below. So we have positive ETs, we have negative ETs, for sure. And the sooner that mankind kind of wakes up to that, I think that to me is like an awakening all in of itself. Wow, really? Okay, great. Free will? Then what do we do with it? So.
Mm-hmm. Well, another question that just came to mind for me is when this is going on. First of all, you said earlier, which I would have, I'd be totally scared to death. I couldn't even imagine, what I hear about, some of these things. But when this first happened to you, right away, did you actually realize what it was? What was going on? No?
No, absolutely not. No. I mean, I observed with 3 other adult friends of mine several UFOs. So first we had one sighting. We knew that whatever it was, that it was, we were in Apple Valley, California, in the desert, in the black of night on a hunting trip. Now, this was one of my first hunting trips. I am not a hunter. I had a spiritual epiphany that night and thought, I can't do this. This is not me. I was really just trying to do it back then to impress my boyfriend at the time. And so I was with him and a married couple that I was rooming with at the time in Huntington Beach, California. So here we are in Apple Valley. We see this beautiful white orb that was to my right, probably 30 feet off the ground, 30 to 60 at that point. And I remember thinking, wow, that's awesome. Just completely holy moly, that's so not, that's not the moon. We were trying to put, what is that? There was absolutely no sound whatsoever. So we pulled our gear out. I'm going to fast forward the story. My friend, I won't mention his name, he ended up killing a bobcat. So we brought the bobcat back to the truck. We're putting the gear in the truck. We get in the sleeping bags. We're looking up at the sky. We're bumbling down the dirt road. The husband is driving. The wife is sitting next to him. And all of a sudden, I see from my left what I thought was a shooting star. And this white orb stops directly over the truck. And this is probably maybe 100 feet up in the air. And I am thinking to myself, what the heck? And before I can even sit up, another one is joined from my right, and the 2 are now directly above the truck. The 2 orbs start to spin around one another. A third blips out eventually, and they make a triangle formation. And it was just phenomenal. I remember we sat up. We rapped on the back of the truck, to tell our friends, hey, look up. They were stunned, and that's when everything gets real weird. I have recall to the point that the truck completely is drained of energy. We went from being very excited to being absolutely terrified because these things were descending upon the truck. We were eventually engulfed in a blue light, and the body memory of being pulled up into this energy of the craft was very much what I had experienced all my life, but I had no place to kind of fit that in. So I do identify as being a childhood contactee. Had many, many, many experiences my whole childhood, but didn't have any context to put it in, so I kind of just blocked it out. And again, this is a fascinating area of the research. We're finding that over and over again, that a lot of these childhood cases, they kind of dismiss it. They go through puberty. They try to block it out for whatever reason. And then, bammo, there's an adult awakening, and it all kind of comes back. Okay?
Uh-huh. I talked to Denise Stoner back, I don't know, I think it was about 8 months ago, something like that. And we talked about the commonalities. And I thought that was pretty interesting. But one of the things I want to ask you, do you have any reference to anything that is just way out there different? I mean, do you have what people claim to have encounters that it just doesn't fit, but it still sounds credible in a way?
No. Typically there's such a pattern that when things don't fit, it's not that I won't look at the data, and believe me, I'm growing every day. Every day I'm learning something new. So I really have had to stretch myself. But I would say that I would, in what I'm interested in researching with this is that, yes, I'd like to stick with things that actually fit what we already know. Now, let me give you a perfect example. When ET, disrupts the environment, and in early research, you would hear a lot of what? Missing time. Okay, so when an contactee is taken, they will sense cognitively that they've had a block of missing time. Okay, not only were they physically, typically not in the environment that they were last seen by family members. There's all kinds of markers in the casework, right, that you could do to have these certain things proven. So we came up with missing time, right, somewhere along in abduction research. Certainly not me. This has been way before me. Now, a new trend that I'm seeing, and I've discussed with other researchers that, again, their caseload is much heavier than mine, and they have entire teams, such as Joe Montaldo at ICAR, very involved in this research. But there's the idea that the contactee is sometimes put back a day sooner. Okay, so the contactees are reporting deja vu. They're reliving an entire day all over again, or a variation, because the timelines are so easy. I don't know how this works. That's why I think, this is crazy. But certainly if you can have missing time, then I guess it would reason, if they can manipulate time and all of that. So again, I don't know that. That's why I'm going to leave it to the scientists. I just kind of, as the experiencer, I try to be as open as I possibly can and get this information, and it's okay if I sound nuts. To me, I mean, I don't mind, because I get that. I'm like, no problem, but we do fine. I mean, this is my niche. I mean, you'd have to be crazy, number one, to stick with, and we laugh about it too. It's great. Oh, and I should say that out of our board, all but 2 are experiencers. In other words, so that to me is amazing, and I'm not going to divulge the 2 that aren't. I get asked that all the time. And a lot of folks, too, it's not safe for them. So understand that my understanding is a lot of people make the assumption that because they've seen a craft but they don't have memory of contact. Well, I'm following cases like that, too. And eventually there's some contacts markers that start to flood back. Mm-hmm. So does it have to do with the extraterrestrials manipulating us, or does it have to do with our own human consciousness? That's the question. Does it have to do with when we are ready on some level to interact with these intelligences, these apparently otherworldly beings?
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Now, just the one question that I'm sure you get asked all the time is, what do you think they want, and why would they be abducting all these hundreds of thousands of people? What benefit for them could they possibly be getting if that's the case?
Oh, maybe they're just going to eat us, blah, 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 right? I mean, you hear so many theories. It's really ridiculous. I think we should pay attention to everything. But the more important question to ask is, what would we want with them? I don't see, to me, it's a consciousness thing. And anyone that's had any kind of telepathic experience with these beings, and I did a little writing, but I need to do more about this because this is really important. And what I've been tracking is that with the contactee, when they're, and it again depends on the being. So that's why I love when people go, what do you think their agenda is? Well, what there? Are we talking about reptilian? Are we talking about mantic beings? Greys? Are we talking about greys that live purportedly on ships? Okay. And they don't live on planets? Or are we talking about greys? You know what I mean? So, I mean, I don't have my own spaceship. I wish I did. I'd be up there, maybe, although I'm a wuss too, right? Because anytime I watch like space stuff, I get sick to my stomach. Every time I've been on a craft environment, I throw up. So those are markers that I look for. And I'm serious. I throw up. I get wicked, just seasick over it. So, I don't know what all the agendas are. And I think that's why, I mean, there is not one, these are excellent questions, by the way, but there's not, this is why the research, this is why I think experiencers, even if they're anonymous, not only do we have to support one another and stick together, because the biggest thing in the field right now, okay, and I'll tell you one of my favorite things is acting as a buddy to other experiencers. Once they feel heard and validated and, oh gosh, okay, I knew I wasn't crazy, okay, then we can calm down and really start to look at what's going on with their contact experiences. So how could I possibly know what the agenda is? I wouldn't. I don't know what the agenda is. I know what my conversations are with the ETs that I've been in contact with, and those conversations are very specifically that we need to be better guardians of our planet and that we need to cease and desist with the wars and nukes especially. So I know I'm not going to be a fan of a lot of folks, but it does go back to the little news item, right, that you were talking about. And if we could go on forever about that, and why are these UFOs going and shutting, monitoring or shutting the installations down? And they're not being jerks about it. They're not initiating war from what I can see. They're just saying, guys, knock it off. What you do to your planet does affect us too. We tend to make everything, oh, they're ETs. Well, wait a minute. Did it occur to people that they have babies too? Does it occur to humanity that they have families? Oh, or is it part of the programming? No. They're robotic. They all work in a hive mentality. Does that kind of make us feel somewhat indifferent so that we don't have to deal with this intelligence? Is that how we insulate ourselves? Or do we perhaps say, oh, hold up, wait a minute. Is our tendency to go to war with everything that we don't understand, or should we try to achieve communion? And what is communion? But to understand and to be able to see, well, what do you value? What's important to you? Are they here just for our resources? And either way, we need to wake up. To me, either way, it's great that we're looking and documenting UFOs in the sky. I love it because that only furthers what's going on, and to me, the real guts of the juice of it is with the experiencers, the sacred truth tellers, as the late Dr. John Mack referred to them as. And I think that that's very accurate. Because it takes a lot of guts. I mean, who wants to say, oh yeah, I got abducted by aliens? I mean, I've heard it all. We don't have to talk about the alien probes or any of this. I've heard it all.
Well, one thing I do want to ask you while we're on this subject, and we have about 7 minutes or so left, and that is, how has this affected relationships, not only with you, but people you know? How does that work? When you are obviously really into this, and you're doing your work that you're doing. So someone like you, I imagine, you have to live and breathe it to be as dedicated as you are. And how does when you're going through life, friendships, relationships, anything like that, what goes on with that?
Oh my gosh, what an absolutely beautiful question. This is an area too, I would say, in the research. Well, first off, I should say that my entire family does not like that I study UFOs. My mom just no, hates it. And, again, different belief systems, religiously or whatever, okay? So there's that. Then the interpersonal relationships, not only in mine, I just recently, not too long, a couple of years ago, went through a divorce. But again, just that people not really getting it or understanding it, which is fine. But again, what I'm tracking is what's going on in the relationships, too, with a lot of the contactees. And what we're finding is many times the more advanced that the contactee gets in their own awakening, they will oftentimes divorce and find another contactee, and then they're happy. So we'll see. And this is another part of the research, but I love it. Now, what has it done for me in my relationships with humanity and relationship primarily with myself, my understanding of the Creator? These are the important. I have a much broader concept of a universal Creator, whatever that looks like. And then the friendships, it's sweetened my friendships. The experiencers have become like family to me. So I really, and I still adore my Earthling family, but I have a lot of the weird UFO people or star children that I just absolutely adore. They're crazy like me. So it's really enriched my life in many ways. And I do think it would have been easier to hide my light, to dumb myself down, to just simply shut up and go away. But I've decided that is not the path to take, that it is important to be bold so that I can be a voice for the other experiencers globally as they find their voice and step out and say, hey, yeah, this is me too. Oh, by the way, in regards to coming out, we are having a Experiencer Liberation Day on October 1st, 2015. We're going to be selling pens on our website, and so that's going to be very exciting. And then I did want to mention again that Starborn Support is going to be also having their next event, I believe the last week of August. So go on Starborn Support's the Experiencer Speak conference.
Yep. Audrey actually came over to my house, and we sat down and recorded, and it was just one of those times. I've had this happen twice where the recording didn't come out. So I'll have to have her on sometime. She's a real nice lady.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
And she does a nice job. She did a very well organized. I went to the Experiencer Speak, not last year, but the year before. Very well organized, great speakers. And, I know how hard that is just from events that I've put on, not related to the UFOs and experiencers or any of that. But, it takes a lot of real dedication to put something like that on, a lot of hard work. And,
it sure does.
Yes. And so we just have a couple more minutes. If there's anything else you want to say about your website, or does that have a Facebook page as well?
You know what we do? We do. So if you just look for Free Experiencers on Facebook, you can find our group. And we have several admins. And there's so many people, again, that I haven't mentioned tonight. I just want to thank Dana Donlin as well for being the website creator of, again, Free, which is experiencer.co.
And it's a very nice website, by the way. And that will be linked in our show notes.
That's fantastic. I appreciate that.
You bet. So how can someone reach you if you would like to be contacted by them?
Excellent question. So the best way right now, we have a couple of people that help source the email for everyone, but they can just identify that they'd like me specifically, and then that will get forwarded by the admins to me. So the email is free. That's FREE at experiencer.co. And then from there, once I establish a relationship with the individual, you'll have all my information.
Okay. Now, I'm going to do something I've never done before, and that's I'm switching guests in the middle of this, this 2-hour show. So
okay.
You'll have to bear with me, everyone. It's going to be just a little bit tricky, and I want to thank you very, very much for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me, Martin. It's been a pleasure.
And it'll be nice to catch up and see you in person, hopefully this next August.
I hope so. Oh, take care.
You too. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Angel, how are you?
How are you doing, sir?
I'm well, thank you. And for the live listener, I'm sorry for any of the technical difficulty we just had. I knew it was going to be a little bit tricky. So welcome to the show.
It always is with modern technology, isn't it?
That's right. So welcome to the show, Angel. And I heard you on, I think it was Open Minds, and I really liked your view and your stand basically on, UFO research. You're not too fringy, which I always enjoy listening to. So first of all, let's talk about your background. You actually were kind to me in the past and offered me a spot, I believe, at one point on your show, and going way back. So why don't we talk about your show and when it is? And you have a lot of people on that as well. That's pretty successful from what I hear.
It's doing pretty well. It is. Our show airs every Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, depending on where you are, 1 a.m. Eastern Time on Dark Matter Radio Network right here. It's called Skywatchers Radio, for those not familiar with the show. I am the main host. Along with me is Alan, my co-host. The show's actually ran for nearly 6 years now, 5.5 years, on and off. We actually had about a 2-year break in between. The original host and myself that did the show was actually 4 of us. They're no longer involved with the show. We kind of retooled and rebooted when we came onto the Dark Matter Radio Network. And we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary in December, which was awesome.
Great.
1 year on Dark Matter. That's an amazing feat, I think.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so I'm sorry, we're having the chat room here also. So if anyone is listening live.
Love chat rooms. Hi, chat room.
Jump right over to the podcastufo.com and make a quick sign-in. So how did you get interested in these topics?
Wow, that's interesting. It goes back to the 80s. I used to live in California as a kid, and I had a sighting out in California. As a little kid, I was playing in the backyard with a friend of mine, and we both saw this thing in the sky, and we stared at it until it flew right into the abyss of nothingness. It just disappeared. And that mesmerized me as a kid. I never really thought of it as an alien being or anything like that. Even as a kid, I thought it might have been some kind of a government aircraft or something, because I was really into aviation and planes and whatnot as a kid. So I was like, I automatically thought, oh, that must be some kind of a government spy plane or something. That's what I thought. But I was really, really captivated by the subject. And along the way, over the years, I was also a big fan of sci-fi movies like Star Wars and Star Trek. I'm a big Trekkie also, and Star Wars fanatic. And, the subject always was near and dear to my heart because of the movies and things that I liked. And then I heard of a story that really captured my attention in the late 80s, early 90s. And that was of a certain gentleman by the name of Travis Walton.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And literally his story completely shaped what you hear today on radio with me. It completely blew me away that he had this experience, that he was there with witnesses who were there and saw him go through it, and they all passed polygraph tests. They were searching for this man for days, and they couldn't find him. Literally, they thought they had murdered Travis. And that really blew me away, because here's the one story now that you don't only have somebody telling a story or something that happened to them, but you have eyewitnesses, you have police, you have an actual investigation involved, polygraph tests, all kinds of evidence that is tangible evidence. And that really is what sparked my interest. And then along the way, as, growing up in the 90s, 80s and 90s kid, that's what I was, I heard of another voice on radio by the name of Art Bell. Which I'm sure is familiar to everybody here on Dark Matter Radio Network. And Art really is the inspiration for just about everything that I've done on radio since. I mean, his format, completely stole me. I was one of the few kids who would rather listen to Art Bell as a kid than go out and play sports or be, hanging out with friends overnight or something. Like, I was more interested in just listening to Art Bell on the radio, because he really had just interesting guests after interesting guests. And that really is what, shaped my interest in getting into radio. And for a long time, I actually wanted to do radio, and I thought about it. I talked to friends who are in the industry just to pick their brain on what they would do and, how they would do a show. But I never really knew how to go about it until, I would say, about 6 years ago, I found online podcasting. Now, it was kind of in its infancy stage still, 6-7 years ago. Mm-hmm. But the one show that really caught my attention on the internet was Alejandro Rojas' UFO Think Tank. And that was one of the first shows that I really heard and paid attention to for a long period of time. And just, listening to him do what he did, really told me that, hey, I could probably do something in this. And I started doing a little podcast along the way with some buddies, and it was nothing serious. And, Alejandro heard it, and Jesse Randolph heard it, and a couple other people heard it. And they started talking to me about, what I should do differently than what I was doing at that moment, and how to maybe take ufology a little bit more serious and do it, a little bit more I guess, formatted, because it was kind of all over the place before, and really format the shows and do it properly, and really helped me, a lot. And I give a lot of credit to Alejandro and Jesse for their help early on. And if you guys don't know who Jesse Randolph is, look up UFOnaut Radio. Great show. He had a show for a long time, and he's unfortunately not doing it anymore. But he's a really good host, and that's really what got me into podcasting on the internet. And I met a couple of friends, Jeremiah Greer from Tenacity Radio's Shadows in the Dark, which he's also not on radio anymore, which is a shame. And he's the first person that took me out of the Block Talk. I don't know if you know Block Talk Radio, but it took me out of that format and said, you should try out Shoutcast. And, that was the first station that I was on the internet was on his radio station.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the things I thought about Art Bell the first time I heard him, and it was many years ago, and it's like I wasn't even listening to the subject. I was thinking, boy, this guy is just a natural. I mean, he was just a natural on the air, but I really, once I started listening and hearing all these interesting things, it really got me hooked. I can understand that.
Yeah, no, for me, it was funny because I would hang out with friends and buddies and, friends from school and whatnot, and I would tell them, hey, have you heard Art Bell before? And they would be like, this guy's crazy. This guy, what he's talking about. And then I actually got a bunch of my friends to become fans of Art Bell. In fact, there's dozens of friends of mine that are fans of Art Bell's because I told them about Art. They had no idea who he was. But Art wasn't the only person that piqued my interest on radio. I'm a big fan of Phil Hendry. I don't know if you're familiar with his work. Art Bell knows Phil Hendry, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you don't know who Phil Hendry is, look up Art Bell and Phil Hendry on YouTube, and you're going to see the cross between the two of them. It's very funny stuff. He's a comedian on radio, which if you listen to Skywatcher's radio, you'll notice that I goof off a little bit, and we do joke around a little bit more than most of the serious ufology shows. That's a little bit of the Phil Hendry influence because I am a huge fan of his work also. And Neil Rogers also shaped a lot of my influence along the way. He was a Miami radio host during the 80s and 90s down here in Miami, Florida, and he passed away a few years ago. I've luckily became friends with him and a few of his folks that were associated with him, including his producer of 20 plus years, George Rodriguez, who's a good friend of mine now. And I do work with him as well on the side on his radio station, SoFlo Radio. So it's one of those things where I've managed to, really pay attention to the people that really I enjoyed. And in a way, you could see the inspiration or like what they inspired in me, what you see now on the radio, just to, bring it full circle.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one thing about doing your own podcast, for instance, is you're the captain of the ship. You can basically do what you want to do. And I when I had Michael Lauk as a co-host, basically doing the news, I had a really good time with that. And I remember getting an email. I read it loud on air. Dear podcast host, you are not funny. You shouldn't try to be funny, and on and on. But, I just ignore it. And if the situation happens, Michael and I just had that type of repertoire where we could, have a lot of fun. And I think it was because he was like really serious and which made me, and he would just hold it together when I went kind of, off kilter a little bit. But,
it's funny. Alejandro asked me when we did Open Minds, when I did an interview on his show, he asked me, how do I deal with, or how has the reaction been from people, seeing that I do more, funnier stuff than normal podcasts like ours? How has the reaction been? And he's had a kind of like a weird kind of a backlash for doing, a little humor on his shows. It's been like the opposite for me. I for whatever reason, I guess, I don't know, maybe it's the personality that people like. I have no idea, but I've actually gotten a lot of positive feedback from doing that format and just being a little bit of a goof on air. I think it really depends on the persons. For some people, it works a little bit better than others. But even if somebody gives you any negative feedback, I always turn that into positive at the end of the day and just make a joke out of it. And eventually they become fans.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about UFOs now.
Okay.
A little bit. It's I always have to get back to that eventually when it comes to the show. So, what would you?
It fits the format.
Now you said Travis Walton, and I had the pleasure of meeting him several times, and when you look into Travis's eyes and he's talking to you, it's solid. There's never been any question in my mind with his story. Told from him. There are a lot of people that have Well, there's a lot of negativity. You can search for it on the internet. You can find that on any case. But I totally stick with the fact that I believe him 100%. But what do you consider some other cases out there that fascinate you?
Well, you know, I'm 100% in agreement. I believe Travis 100%. But other cases out there, I mean, the Roswell case has always been a fascinating case to me, just because of the sheer amount of times that the government's come out with different stories of what happened. That's always been fascinating. Betty and Barney Hill, their abduction, that's a fascinating case in itself. The Rendlesham Forest case is also a very interesting case. There's a lot of interesting stuff that happened, but the sad part of what I've seen in ufology since I've been doing radio is that a lot of the great stories happened a long time ago.
Yes.
Not a lot of it's happening today, and that's very sad.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
One of the complaints I do get in email is, you're rehashing the old
Well,
stuff.
we have no choice. I mean, I know, and I've gotten this before too, Martin. I mean, I've gotten people telling me, how many times can you talk about Roswell? I'm like, well, it's a pretty big case, and, well, there's nothing happening so far that is bigger than Roswell. I mean, they haven't landed on the White House lawn yet. And, I personally, I don't believe certain individuals who've come out with video of aliens peeking through their windows. So, I mean, that doesn't, qualify to be as big as Roswell. So why am I going to talk about that guy? Let's talk about Roswell. That's more important. And unfortunately, there really has not been another Roswell. I think the closest will probably be the Rendlesham Forest case, but that was also a long time ago.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid case. I really have always thought highly of that one. Okay, so I heard you say alien in the window. so let's talk about that a little bit. And I'm not afraid to mention, I just wondered if I haven't heard anything about the case that was going to court in regards to Mr. Romanek, and just wondered, is there news out there that I haven't heard? And it's not like I'm following it or anything, but it just seems like you'd hear more about that whole situation. And basically that, he was caught with child pornography, and, and his wife backed him up by saying that, the government put the child pornography on his computer, and then the case just kind of died and went away, and I haven't heard. Well, no,
it hasn't really died. I mean, I think they're still they haven't gone to court yet. I mean, there's still a court date that's going to happen. The trial still hasn't happened yet. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that still is yet to happen, and we have to see, what does happen at the end of the day. Look, he's innocent until proven guilty. That's the way it works in this country.
Yep.
And we can't forget that. What I don't like about what happened on that case, because anybody can have stuff planted on their computer. That's 100% legit. That can happen. My thing with this case is the government would not spend years investigating a person, tailing a person, and really for what? To find child pornography in the computer? I mean, they would not spend the amount of man hours, the money spent. I mean, it's ridiculous. If you look at the entire time that they were, investigating Stan, I don't think the government would put that much effort into it unless there was really something tangible there. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't compute. Now, if the government wants to plant evidence, they could do that within a week's time or 24 hours. They would not spend a year or 2 years investigating the man. You know what I mean? That just does not factor at all. And my thing, and I said this on the show before, I just hope that he is innocent. I hope that they can prove that he is innocent, because I would hate to have his association in ufology be another black eye for the entire, field of ufology. I would hate for other people within ufology who are associated with him to unfortunately maybe be labeled like what he might be, because you never know. I mean, there could be an organization of people that he was sharing pornography with or sharing this content with. And if some of them come out there, they're in ufology, some big names we might know, well, that's not good.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I have thought of all these things that, it isn't good, because it just, it just adds to the fire of, people thinking that, anyone interested in this is a bunch of nutcases. So he gets caught. I was a former guest of mine that was interviewing him on Skype, and he got caught throwing a pen, above his head. Did you happen to see that?
Martin, the funniest thing about that video is I saw that video and I was cracking up, and I was like, oh, there he is, busted. The complete hoaxing. And then, like, a day later, the charges are brought up on child pornography.
Oh, is that how that went?
It was like one day to the next. I mean, that's when I saw it. I don't know if the video had been online a few days before or a month before or whatever, but I saw it, and literally like the next day, the child pornography charges went up. And I just had this weird feeling about karma. And how, because look, I don't believe the alien in the window. I'm sorry, Stan. I don't believe that either. I don't believe that he has any psychic abilities or he is a contactee and we obviously saw him hoax a video, right? It's there. He threw a pen in the air. I mean, or a flash drive or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. To me, what's happening to him now is karma. Huh? You do evil, you do bad, you get it right back in the end. And, it is what it is, and like I said, I hope that he can prove that he's innocent. Because if he can't, and there are other people involved, it's just going to be really bad for the entire field of ufology, for all of us.
Yeah, even if it's just him alone.
Even if it is him, yeah, it's still bad.
Yeah, it is. It is. So, of course, when we're talking about stuff like this, we always have to be careful exactly what you're saying. And like you said,
right.
He is innocent until proven guilty. He was, I think, my third guest on the show when I first started, and I didn't really know who he was or anything like that. I, knew a little bit about him, but I didn't really know much.
He's a very friendly guy. I mean, I had him on the show a couple times. He's a very friendly, nice guy. Him and his wife, Lisa, are very, very nice folks to talk to if you don't know anything of the shadowy stuff that's going on behind the scenes, if it's true. But just as a radio host and interviewing Stan, seemed like a very nice person when I interviewed him. In fact, they were down here in Florida about 2 years ago for a convention. I think it was like 2 years ago. And they invited me out to the convention. I couldn't make it out to it because of work reasons. But they invited me. They were nice enough to, gesture for me to go out and do an interview over there and stuff. So, I mean, they're nice folks. So, I mean, to me, they've never been nothing but nice. But that does not mean that I'm going to, just because they're nice to me, I'm not going to say, well, I'm going to support hoaxing. You know what I mean? That's not, I'm not that type of person. And Stan knows that. I mean, I've talked to Stan in private about that before I even did the show. And I told him, look, Stan, I'd love to have you on the show. We could definitely do an interview, but, I really don't think that's an alien in your window, buddy. I mean, it just doesn't look real. And we had a whole conversation about that. And of course, he denied that he did any hoaxing. He said, well, maybe somebody's pranking me. I don't know, but I definitely didn't do anything wrong, which that's a possibility also. That's
exactly what I actually did ask him that, and on the show I had, and he said that very same thing. I mean, he's ready for that. He's ready for, he has the reply to that question and then anything else. And basically, well, maybe it is, and but maybe it is that I'm getting hoaxed. I don't know. I can't say for sure. That type of thing. So he's pretty smooth in that regards. If you ask me. And speaking of, let's go into, since we're on such a great negative topic.
Sure, child pornography and hoaxing in ufology. Doesn't get any brighter than that. Oh, jeez.
No, I want to talk about hoaxing, because that is, I'm in the fine arts and antiques business. That's what I do. That's my other life. I'm involved in a startup right now, and social media for collectors. It's pretty exciting and all that. But one of the things that bugs me in my business is fakes. Fakes in paintings, fakes in, anything that's worth any money is faked, basically.
Right.
And so that, I have a bone of contention when it comes to that. And I feel the same way when it comes to UFO hoaxes and hoaxers. There's not a heck of a lot of them, thank goodness, but there are. There's some, that are pretty well busted. There's some that people really don't care. I'm just going to throw out, because I've already thrown them under the bus a few times, and that's third phase of the moon.
As I like to call them, third buffoons of the moon.
Now they must be generating a pretty tidy sum in YouTube ads, or YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Monetizing the YouTube channel, but it's. There's a couple of decent ones mixed in with mostly hoaxes.
Well, I mean, from my take on third phase of moon, which that's where third phase of moon. What happened to the? But anyway, my take on them is they're doing a lot of nice CGI work themselves. I have nothing to back it up on. I don't have any inside information or anything like that. But just looking at what they've put out, a lot of them looks like it's created by the same people. When you're a filmmaker, and I'm an amateur filmmaker, I want to direct film. That's kind of like my passion in life also. Eventually, I want to direct a movie, and I'm writing a script now as we speak. And I've edited a lot of film in my day. And as a filmmaker and somebody who knows how to do CGI work, you can kind of tell when somebody's doing the same kind of videos over and over again in different scenarios or in different situations. You could tell the artistic
fingerprints
profile or look or the fingerprints of something, and you could tell a lot of their videos are made by the same folks. I mean, anybody who's a graphic designer or an artist or a filmmaker will be able to tell right away, and they've been called out on it before, and their answer is always like, well, if it wasn't for our videos, we would not be able to do this interview with so and so, and we could not have met so and so. I'm like, what does that got to do with anything?
Mm-hmm.
What is that? I mean, that's like almost saying, yeah, we hoaxed it, but we got to meet Travis Walton or Stan Romanek. Who cares? You're still hoaxing videos. You know what I mean?
Right.
To me, that is the problem. And it's folks like them that clutter ufology with nonsense and makes ufology look to the establishment as a joke. And it's not only third phase of Moon, it goes down the line. Billy Myers, I don't believe. I think he's a hoaxer. I think he's built a whole life in a cult around a hoax.
I'm 100% with you on that one too. And I'm trying to think, was it Horn, the guy that's really pushing him here in the States?
Yes, his American pimp. Yes, Michael Horn.
Michael Horn. There was something he came out with, some type of statement he came out with that, alas, we're being, I forget exactly what it was. I don't know if you caught that maybe, 6 or 8 months ago, where he was saying that scientists...
he's always putting some craziness on there. In fact, I'm unluckily and unwillingly part of an email group. I don't know if you're familiar with Victor, the Sky Wizard, the email link. I don't know if you're at all part of that, but a lot of people within the podcast community that do ufology shows somehow got trapped into this email blast, and he's a part of it, and we get his propaganda every once in a while. And I've gone back and forth with him in email before, and I tell him, look, Michael, I'm just not interested. Please take me off the list. Stop emailing me and just leave me alone. And then he sends me about 40 emails calling me all kinds of names, insulting me, because he just can't take the fact that I'm not interested in what Billy Myers is pushing. And that is the worst kind of person. He has made a living off of a lie. They're all making a living out of a lie, out of the Billy Myers case. There's no truth to that whatsoever. You could just look at the evidence that Billy's provided over the years, and it speaks for itself. The guy took pictures of girls from the Dean Martin show and tried to pass them off as aliens. I mean, come on. Really, Billy? Couldn't do better than that? Dean Martin show? Somebody's going to figure this out.
You got to start somewhere.
Well, I guess so. Well, he did start before that. He took pictures of a book from the National Geographic that showed dinosaurs on it, and he said, the aliens took me back in time, and look at the dinosaur pictures. And then somebody wisely looked at the National Geographic magazine and said, wait a second. They're the same photographs. Look at that.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
I mean, he's been debunked countless times, and still you have his American pimping his stuff out there like it's a legit thing, and always coming out with, he's a prophet, he prophesies this and that. Okay, where's the proof? Well, here's a website that published like a blog that talks about it. That's not proof. I could say something that happened on 9/11 and put it on a blog and misstate it and to fool people. Anybody could do that. Give me a book that came out published in the 70s where he's actually prophesizing something that happened now. That's proof.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you the president's going to have a son one day, or there's going to be a son of a president that's going to be a president. And in 100 years, if that ever happens, am I a prophet? No. I'm a lucky guesser.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Well, there's also, I'm kind of digging this topic because we're just having a conversation here, and
that's what I do, Martin. I'm not a professional. I just talk.
Yeah. So one of the things I've commented on in the past when I've talked to certain guests is that it seems to me that a number of people that have been in ufology for a while, they run out of something. I don't know what it is, and then they seem to go a little bit out there. Have you have any opinion on that? Have you noticed that?
Explain going a little bit out there.
Well, okay. I'm going to throw someone else under the bus.
Okay.
Dr. Stephen Greer.
Oh, man. Oh.
Okay.
Stephen. Oh, man.
Yeah. So I just think, he started out really solid. He made a very good impression
early on.
First.
Yep.
Yes, and he did really good work. And then I think it's I'm not really sure what it is that changes with certain people, but
here's the thing: it's completely ego driven, and it's attention. When certain people get certain attention and they become celebrity like, they become a diva. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying Dr. Stephen Greer is a diva, but he sure do act like a diva.
Yes. I don't know. Did you ever hear, Michael Loka, again, I mentioned him earlier, was, on the show with me and, dug up something about him taking pictures with people in an invisible spaceship, and charging them for it. And then also locking people inside a conference with the bodyguards there and all that. I don't know if any of this is true. I've never really seen any of it, documented or anything like that. Have you heard those rumors out there as well?
No, but there is a nasty rumor that I heard of Dr. Greer that I can't say on air just because it's kind of really dirty. I'll tell you off air later, and you will laugh. And then Keith will say, thanks for not saying that on the air because that's really dirty. In fact, some of it involves the 7 dirty things you can't say on television. Remember those?
I do. So George Carlin.
I'll tell you later. Yeah, George Carlin. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, now I'm going to have a bunch of angry listeners. I'm going to say, email me.
Hey, I'll take your email. info@skywatchersradio.com. Address it to me. Don't worry. We'll be good.
Okay. All right. Very good. So we were talking earlier about videos, third phase of the moon and all that. It really makes me wonder the way CGI is going, the way technology is going. Yes. We have things in our favor. We have, better iPhones and more people have them and, better smartphones, I meant. Where just about everyone will have a camera on them almost all the time. But I got to tell you, when I had the sighting I had, I didn't even think of a camera. I just wanted to see what I was seeing. But
right.
As we progress, though, in technology, the CGI YouTubes are going to be more difficult, I believe. It's going to get harder and harder to tell what's real and what's not.
Oh, Martin, you're completely 100% right. In fact, it's already there. I mean, it's already impossible to tell what's real and what's not real. Any 12-year-old kid in a basement somewhere could create a beautiful CGI UFO and make it fly around a city and do it within a couple of hours or days. It's not hard to do. Technology is advanced enough that anybody could do this stuff. So anybody tells you that, you'd have to be in Hollywood to make this kind of video. No, not really, not anymore. Maybe in the 90s, but not now. The 90s, you might have to have Hollywood production behind something like that. But today, anybody could do it. And that's really, honestly, that's the worst part of technology. But at the same time, it's the best thing that could happen for this kind of field. Because for us now, it's going to make it, to the point that no video is going to be proof. Now we're going to look for real proof, tangible evidence. Just pictures and videos are not going to fly anymore. Pardon the pun. You know what I mean? We're going to have some real evidence before we can say, okay, this is legit. And even in the 90s, look, in the 90s, we got all duped by the alien autopsy.
Right.
Okay. A lot of folks got duped by that because that was a production behind that. They produced that. So, even tangible evidence which looks real like that is no good.
I wasn't even paying much attention to the whole field. That was way before I had my sighting or anything. And, I watched that. I watched that with like, oh, my God. I believed it. That was
everybody
good.
Did, yeah. Everybody did, yeah. Everybody. In fact, I mentioned the name earlier, Jesse Randolph of UFOnaut Radio. He was friends with some of the folks that put that production together. And he told me straight up, yeah, no, that was a hoax, man. I know the people. You want to talk to them?
Like a $20,000 budget, too. I mean, it was real small.
Yep.
How they did that. I had Philip Mantle on. I'm not sure if you know who he is.
I've heard the name. Yeah, I've heard the name.
Yeah, he's the one who really came out and just put it all on the table. This thing's a hoax. Everybody, he started out his interview with me was, all right, spoiler, everybody, it's a hoax, and then we'll talk about it. But what a path that one led. I mean, the guy made a fortune actually off of that. I think there was one. I don't want to say a fortune, but I think right off the bat he sold some part of it or all of it or whatever for $250,000 or something like that. Don't quote me, but right away, and then as that just snowballed, and what's going to stop that from happening again? Really.
And that's why we have to really support movements like the Steve Bassett's movement with the disclosure movement. Those are the ways we're going to get to the truth of what's going on with the phenomenon that is ufology, by doing stuff that pushes the government towards disclosing what they know. We can't wait for videos like that to come out anymore because that's no good. It really isn't. And yeah, there'll probably be other ones that come out in the next few years, with the technology getting as easy as it is. There's actually one that went viral. I don't know if you ever seen this one, Martin. It's been on YouTube for a couple of years now, and it's been viral. It's an alien sitting in a dark room, and then there's a couple of guys talking to him in Portuguese, I think, or another language, and they're like yelling at him, and then his face comes towards the camera, and he's like almost like moaning or about to cry. It looks really realistic, but of course, it also looks very CGI'd. And
that's not in black and white, is it?
It's black and white. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah.
There's that, and there's another one that has the alien in the room, and he's like leaning down, and he's like walking around the room, and then somebody's going to open the door. So
he's sort of a sick alien.
He kind of looks sick. Well, he's an alien, so you don't know if he looks sick or healthy. Really, it's an alien. What do we know? But he's like walking around the room, all scared, and then the guy comes in to open the door and puts some food on the floor, and he like goes back and crouches. I mean, if you look at that, and you're not a filmmaker, or you're a novice, you'll look at that and you'll be like, oh, well, it looks real. You couldn't tell the difference. But as a filmmaker, you could tell that's clear CGI. But that was 4 or 5 years ago. Imagine now, with the technology the way it is.
So. I think the number one video for UFOs is a CGI that I think it has 100 million views, something like that. And it's going through some palm trees in Haiti, I believe it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that.
That's a good one. And,
you know what that was? You know what that was created for, though, right, Martin? I don't know if you ever followed up why that was actually even created and put online.
No, I don't know if I knew that.
That was created as test footage for an actual movie that ended up coming out a couple years later.
How about that? Nope, never heard that part.
Battle of LA, the alien invasion movie. That was actual test footage for that movie.
Well, it's pretty good.
It was pretty good. It was very convincing, wasn't it?
Yeah. Now, I think that's interesting that, that a kid could actually, create something. And it actually probably makes you wonder why there isn't more, and I hate to say it, but why there isn't more online with people trying to, hoax. But it always makes me wonder. It doesn't make me wonder in my business I mentioned earlier in fine art and stuff like that. Someone is hoaxing, obviously, for money, but for the most part, someone's not going to be hoaxing a video in hopes for money. I don't think. I don't see that happening. Except
you actually could. You put it on YouTube, it goes viral, gets several million hits, and you make that sucker monetized, and there you go. You start making a little scratch right off the bat. But here's the thing: forget CGI for a second. We haven't even touched on the drone technology that's really come full circle in the last few years and really has exploded. In the next few years, drones are going to be all over the place. Amazon is working on a project with drones. So there's a good chance you're going to see people start hoaxing videos with drones that look like little mini saucers. Because remember, cameras don't have very good perception of depth or depth perception. So if you have, it looks, at the right distance, it could look like a large ship in the sky. And it could be nothing but a drone.
Right. And we had earlier in the news with was speaking about possible drones in France. In France over nuclear power plants. So, that will be tough, and that is another one. And there was a drone hoax. I'm not sure if you heard about that in Canada at some sports game.
I haven't heard about that.
Everyone bought it. And then it was like they did it for publicity, so, yeah. Yeah, drones are going to be another one. And, the Chinese lanterns are another thing that fool a lot of people. So yeah, we have more than ever to worry about as far as what's real and what's not. And
it's not only just CGI. It's a little bit of a lot of different things that makes it really, really tough to be in this field and scrutinize the videos that get put on the internet. That's why I don't really, it's funny. I'm into ufology. I do the shows and everything, and I rarely look online anymore for videos.
Mm-hmm.
I really do because there's no point.
Yeah, right. I had Dr. Bruce Maccabee on a couple of times, but the
Great
first
guy.
time he is. First time I had him on, I said to him something about, how do you know when you have a good, really good photo? I think I was talking about photos at the time. And he says, well, it's all about the witnesses. It's all, that comes first. And, that makes total sense. And that's the way, even more so now than ever, that rule has to follow.
I agree with that. It is all about the witnesses. And, look, the more important the witness, and I hate to say it like that, but, for example, if witnesses are police officers, people in the army, or, people in government, they come forward with their own experiences. To me, those are the ones that we really have to take a little bit of a closer look. Not just anybody who comes out and says, I saw a UFO in my backyard last week. Mm-hmm. That's not helping. You know what I mean?
I had Dr. Seth Shostak on the show, and we debated UFOs, way back. And, I mentioned that to him. I said, what about, more credible people as far as astronauts or police officers or military? And he says, they're no more better observers than anyone else. He just went on and on about that. He, basically saying that, eyewitnesses make no, what did he say? They wouldn't hold up in a murder trial. They make no difference. They're inconsequential, really.
Oh, well, he's right in a lot of ways because, the witness doesn't really matter if he's a police officer or a government agent or a civilian of any kind. But the thing is, who has more to lose, an astronaut or a farmer?
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know what I mean? Look at Edgar Mitchell, for example. Use him as a template. He came forward saying that he believes that there's aliens out there, that the government's covering it up, and he has been scrutinized by people within government. He has taken a stance that goes against the grain of NASA. You know what I mean? So he has been put in that kind of a bubble. And he had a lot more to lose coming forward than, if average Joe Blow comes out of North Carolina and says, hey, I was abducted, with no evidence. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? The fact that Edgar Mitchell put himself out there means a lot more. And as a witness, let's say he saw an alien ship or he saw a UFO or whatever. As a witness, his account of what he might have seen is no more important than anybody else's account in terms of what they may have seen if they saw something together at the same time or saw the same object. They're probably going to say the same kind of story. But is the person itself, is the establishment and the way they look and view at this person that matters more. Mm-hmm. That's why I think it is more important to have somebody like an Edgar Mitchell or somebody within government or an authority figure that comes forward. Podesta, who's going to be head of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign if she decides to run, he's in favor of disclosure. He is pushing for this subject. Mm-hmm. Those are the type of people that I want to see more out there.
Well, Clinton was, in the beginning he was. I don't know if you heard about him on the Jimmy Kimmel show. Mm-hmm. He was, when he went into office, he wanted to find that out. And I really don't know how far a president could actually get. If that's, we have no way of knowing, how that really works.
No, none.
Could be so compartmentalized that you just can't get to it no matter who you are. It's very, very possible.
It's possible, and here's another thing. I thought if anybody was going to be the disclosure president, it would have been like President Obama or somebody like him, who is so polarizing, and this would be great for his administration to be the one who discloses this to the public. And already he's done a lot of different things which have been both controversial and positive for a lot of folks like myself. Look, I'm Cuban. What he's doing now with the whole thing in Cuba is very positive for the community in Cuba. So this would have been a great niche for him also to add this to his presidency. I don't think it's going to happen for him. If it happens for like the next president, whether it's Hillary or whoever, that would be great. But you're absolutely right. We don't know how that works. We don't know if somebody's going to tell him, hey, you're the president. You're the one that's going to say it. If somebody, and who's they that are saying them? if there is a shadow government. If there isn't a shadow government, and we've all just been making up conspiracies all along, and it really just is all compartmentalized, like you were saying, that's the case. And that's a tough word for me, by the way. I'm Cuban. But if that's the case, then you know what? Then there might not be a person behind the scenes pulling the strings that tells the president, by the way, you're going to be the guy. That person might not even exist. You know what I mean? There might not be that shadow group. We don't know. We have no idea. At the end of the day, it's all theories, really, because nobody really knows.
I had someone on one time that said, even if the president had a press conference and said, we are being visited by aliens, a lot of people still wouldn't believe.
Probably not, no, because we'll be like, well, Mr. President, where's the proof?
Yeah. That's what we're asking.
Yeah, we want the proof. And look, and you can blame you can blame years of listening to William Cooper for that. Also, William Cooper didn't, he pushed the government when they was gonna, hoax a UFO invasion or some kind of a UFO incident, and that was gonna happen. So now if it does happen, we all have to be like, wait a second. Well, William Cooper kind of said this in Behold the Pale Horse. Mr. President, where's the proof? So that's going to be in the minds of a lot of folks like myself who read the book Behold the Pale Horse. People who are in the conspiracy theory field like us, in ufology field, we're going to ask that question. So again, it's not just coming out and saying it. God bless Steve Bassett again. He's pushing for the right thing. But even if they come out and say that, aliens are real, we still need to see some evidence. Right. Until I see an actual alien being walking in a room and that I can shake hands with or have Starbucks with or whatever, I'm not going to believe it. That's just, and I think most people think that way, and it doesn't mean that we don't think they are out there, because I believe there's aliens all over the place. It's just I want to see the proof at this point. I don't want to see no more jokes. I don't want to see somebody telling me, I had a dream, and in my dream I was contacted by a person in Alpha Centauri, and they told me that one day I was going to be president of the world. That doesn't work for me. Yeah. We've come a long way since that.
Yeah, I know, and you go all the way back to these. The old contactees from way back, talking about, living on Jupiter and all this stuff. So we've had a tough road to hoe as far as, trying to get any answers, really. And Steve actually was the first guest on my show here. He was the first one that took the chance. And speaking of that, when you started your show, and you did your first UFO show, did you have a hard time getting a guest for that, or did that work out fine?
Well, Martin, I'll tell you what, the first show I ever did that was ufology based, I had a hard time getting a thought out. Because I had so many things in my head racing around that I didn't know exactly where to start. I mean, I was literally all over the place. I did about 2 or 3 podcasts just by myself, talking about different cases that I was interested in, and just rambling on like a crazy madman on the air. And then I ran into Alejandro and Jesse, and we were talking about having them on, and they really were the first main guests that I had on my show. They were kind enough to be on the show and talk to me about what we all like, ufology. And it was a learning experience because they're more professional than I was at that point. They're more professional than I am now. So it's still a learning experience whenever I'm on the air with them. And that was the first real serious interview that I did when it came to ufology. And after that, I started just going crazy. I was like, well, let me see who I could have on the air. And I started putting a bucket list together of the people I wanted to interview. Number 1 on my list was Travis Walton. Why not? Shoot for the stars, right? Go for the gusto. And I contacted Travis. He agreed to be on the show. And, that told me when I was able to get Travis, I was like, okay, I think I can get just about anybody else at this point. Because, Travis is to me the biggest in ufology. So I started going after people like Lloyd Pye, Steve Bassett. I went after, and Steve Bassett, clicked right away, and he's been on the show dozens of times. He's a great, great guy to talk to. Jose Escamilla, who's been a good friend over the years, he's been on the show a lot. Paul Dale Roberts has been on the show, a lot. There's a lot of folks in ufology that I keep bringing on because they're really, really interesting people, but they're also good, honest folks that are in it for the same reasons that I'm in it. They want to know what the truth is. They're hungry to find out what's happening in this field, and they just want to, get to the final answer of, are we alone? And honestly, when it came to doing my show, those are the people I wanted to hit up, and they all started just saying yes one after the other, and that blew my mind. When Lloyd Pye said yes, Travis Walton said yes, Steve Bassett said yes, and it was like one after the other. I felt like Art Bell in the 90s. I was like, oh my God, it's epic. It's like one great guest after the other. I didn't know how to even like handle it. And I'll tell you what, early on, the first few episodes, I was probably terrible. Not that I'm much better now, but I've come a long way, I think. But back then, I was terrible, and they were kind enough to stick by it, and they've been on several times after that. And I will never, ever, ever not have a Stephen Bassett or Escamilla on my show, or one of those guys on my show, because those are just good friends at this point, and I love having them on. So,
yep, I almost had lunch last year with Stephen Bassett, but we just couldn't put it together. I was out that way. I was really close to his house, and it just couldn't make it work. But I might have him pop in the next show or two and just catch up. The last time he was on the show, he was really angry about something, and he's a very passionate man when it comes
he's always
to
angry about something, Stephen Bassett. He's always just
That's
but
right.
it's a passion. It's a passion that he has that makes him angry. But no, he's a great guy. Look, I haven't met him in person yet. I know all these folks over the phone and doing the interviews and on the show and just chatting with them on email and off air. But he's somebody that I want to meet before I die or he dies, and I definitely want to meet him one day. Travis Walton is another one I want to meet in the near future. In fact, he's going to have another summit this year for the Fire in the Sky Summit. He had it just this past year. They're having another one this year, and I'm going to attend it, and hopefully I get to meet Travis and shake his hand, because I mean he really is part of the reason why I do this today. And one person that I don't think I'll ever even have him say my name on air, but it would be a dream come true, would be Art Bell. I mean,
yes. Yeah.
If he just acknowledges my existence at some point in time, I would be happy with that. That's all.
He would do that if you call into his show. And by the way, the listener should be pretty excited because he'll be back in just a matter of months.
Yes.
And he'll be right here on the Dark Matter Radio Network. And
yes.
I think his time slot, I don't want to call his time slot, but it's not going to affect a lot of us on the show, which is good.
It's going to affect me, actually, but in a good way.
Yeah.
See, right now we do the overnight hour. We do 1 to 3 in the morning, and that's going to be part of Art Bell's time slot. I have no problems moving and letting Art Bell take his time back. No problem with that. None.
I wouldn't have any. I can't believe you do those hours, and you were kind enough to invite me on your show, which I'm going to be on. We're doing a little cross-pollination here, basically.
Yes.
So you're kind enough to let me pre-record instead of staying up all hours.
Yes.
That was nice. And
which you're the first person that I've said, okay, I'll let you pre-record. Why not?
Oh,
sorry,
really?
other guys. I've been asked before, and I'm like, nah, man, we do everything live. No, we're live, baby. No. You're the first.
Oh, wow.
Should be
now I feel like I'm under pressure.
You better deliver a good show. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so we have someone on the message board saying he's going to sound like a broken record, he or she. I met Stan and Lisa in July and hung out with them for a weekend. They are kind of down to earth. Forgive the pun. I believe him regardless of the pencil trick. He does like to joke around. So that's just someone's comment on the like I said, when we were talking about him earlier, I've had nothing but positive interactions with him before, so I can't say a negative thing between me and him. We've never had a negative interaction, but that does not mean that he's not guilty. Yes, Jeffrey Dahmer was a lovely young man until he started eating people. You know what I mean? When he was in prison, guess what? The guards loved him. They thought he was a role model prisoner until they murdered him. But, I'm not trying to say he's Jeffrey Dahmer and he's killing people and eating them. That's not what I'm saying here, folks. But let's be realistic here. We don't know what happens behind closed doors. We just don't. Yeah. And when there's smoke, there's usually fire, right? And one thing that happened when the police went in and they got Stan, which to this day really boggles my mind why he would make this comment. When the cops were interrogating him and talking to him or whatever, they take him over to where Lisa was in the house or wherever it was. And the first thing he says to Lisa is, "Oh, they're just here about the child porn stuff." And she acknowledges like she knows it. She knows about it. That to me is a little bit, because look, if somebody's planting stuff in your computer, if one day I go to my computer and I turn my computer on and all of a sudden I look at a folder and it's full of child pornography that I didn't put in there, what am I going to do?
delete it immediately because that's not me. I don't want that on my computer, right? And then I'm going to grab that computer, call my internet provider, and be like, hey, I've been hacked, and they just put child pornography in my computer. What the hell's going on? And I would launch my own investigation because that is the most disgusting thing that you could be involved in, child pornography.
Yeah, I
so
agree. Yeah.
To me, for them to make it a joke out of the police interaction with them or the police questioning and to make it like a silly comment, oh, yeah, the child pornography stuff, that to me is really telling of what really might be going on behind the scenes. It's too loose and it's too like nonchalant of an answer for them to really, come off as being completely innocent. If you're innocent, by all God, you're not going to be like, oh, it's just the child porn stuff. Yeah, it's nothing. Just child pornography. Bunch of naked kids getting it by a bunch of old people. That's nothing.
Yeah.
No, Stan, that's actually a big deal. You know what I mean? That's a problem. That's nothing to joke around about. Forget the alien in the window. Forget, the hoaxing of the pen or that trick, the hoaxing video. Forget all that. This is more serious than anything he's ever had happen to him or anything that he's ever done. This is really bad. I mean, this is the most disgusting thing you can be accused of. Period. By none.
Yeah, and
That's
anyone that gets anyone that goes to prison for that is not does not have a bright future in prison either.
No,
from what I understand.
No, he can go in Stan and he's going to come out Ramona or Monica or
it's not going to be good.
Janice or he's going to come out a different
or maybe not
gender.
Come out. That's just what happens. Yeah.
That too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're getting near the end of the show. We have, 5 or 6 minutes left. So I kind of think we should probably end on more of a positive way.
We could go down a little bit more and just, dig deeper into it.
Yeah. No. So I'm going to ask you, you've been involved in this for a while. Where do you think ufology is headed? And one of the things... let me rephrase that. I had Alejandro on a while back at the year end, and we said something about, we got about 3 minutes left, and he said something about Jason at Open Minds thinks that this will be the year that they, come out with extraterrestrial life exists, and I agree with that. I think that's going to happen. And since we only have a couple minutes left, what's your thoughts on that?
Unfortunately, they've been saying that for the last 15 years. Every year is the year, and it never happens. I hope it is the year. I've been hoping that for the last 10, 15 years. So I see no signs that they're going to disclose anything major, but I do see signs that they're going to disclose that they found maybe microbes on Mars or some kind of artifact on Mars, something small. We're going to start there.
But
that's enough.
For me,
we'll start there.
That's enough. It's life, and it's life elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that that's probably going to happen this year, and I don't know exactly why. But
here's going to be the kicker, though, Martin. What if we do find something on Mars, and it turns out that it's not extraterrestrial, but it's ours from a past civilization that is human from Earth?
You lost me at what if?
That, I think, is going to blow everybody away. And that, I think, is a very big possibility of what's been going on and why there's such a big secrecy. Because we might find out that, hey, we actually are the aliens, and we've been the aliens all along.
Yeah. Well, there's no answers here, no answers tonight, but I love the speculation. That's the part that just keeps me, going week after week, and trying to figure this whole thing out. And I'm not sure if it'll happen in my lifetime, but
I hope so.
The journey has been really fascinating, and it's always fun, talking to people like you who are basically, you're out there doing what I'm doing and getting basically the same information. Kind of goes nowhere, but it's interesting anyway.
It is. It's always fun.
Yeah. So we're getting near the end of the show. If you can just announce out there where people can find you, what you have going on, your website and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, and first I want to say, Martin, thank you so much for inviting me on your show. It's been an honor to be on the show here and to talk to you for an hour. Anybody who's interested in listening to my ramblings, you can check me out every Tuesday night at 1 a.m. Eastern or Wednesday morning, depending on what part of the Rockies you're in. it's Skywatchers Radio. That's the show, and it's www.skywatchersradio.com. That's our website. Go there. Friend us on Facebook. Like us on Facebook. See us on Twitter. All that good stuff. We're all over the place. Just search Skywatchers Radio.
Very good. Well, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
So I want to thank everyone for helping out with the show today. Of course, our two guests, Christina Nolles and Angel Espino, and
close enough. It's Espino, but close.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to. I'm sorry for that, and I think in the beginning of the show I really butchered your name. So sorry about that.
It's okay. I'm the great butcher of names. It happens to me all the time, so don't worry.
And I also want to thank Carrie Lloyd Whitehouse and Bruce Rainier for our music. Peggy Shunning for managing our Facebook page. Remember to like us on Facebook for all the latest UFO news. And you can check us out live next week right here on the Dark Matter Radio Network, and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is Martin Willis, and I'm saying thank you, and keep your eyes to the sky.